Today is August 9th, 2018, Thursday. Get ready for the emergency broadcast system, the Forbidden History series. What they didn't want you to know, but we tell right here. Stand by for the broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. We now interrupt your normally scheduled programming to bring you this very important deprogramming program. And special thanks to YouTube.com for your hosting the Forbidden History series. Please note that the following views and the opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily the views nor the opinions of the Master Force Group, YouTube.com, Free America Radio Network, our sponsors, our partners, and MFG is a private society. Nothing here is ever to be construed as medical, hate, nor legal advice. And listen to the Forbidden History prime time, 7 days a week, right here on the realpublicradio.net, because hidden beneath the sands of time lies the greatest of all mysteries. It's the Forbidden History. Unearth for yourself the secret truths that lie hidden just beneath the surface below our feet. What is it that the powers that be do not want you or I to know? Come and journey with us as we explore and dare to know, because it's all right here, coming your way, twice a day, 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on the realpublicradio.net, Free America Radio Network. You did tell your friends? Thank you for doing that. Coming to you live from Studio Z at the Lighthouse in Central Ohio and the heart of Amish country and Free America Radio Network in the land of dreams, enchantments, and nightmares. It's the Forbidden History series. The great lies of history, the duality in nature, patterns and pictures, symbolism, the words that kill, the piracy of words, book and movie reviews, and a whole lot more, the ABCs of light. It's the deprogramming program, ladies and gentlemen. It's what they didn't want you to know that we tell right here. Hey, Ninja. It is the battle for the mind, ladies and gentlemen, and the truth is light, but ignorance is the darkness, and these are the great antagonists, the one against the other. But once we can begin to comprehend the true nature of things as they really are, then we can begin to comprehend that there is nothing more to complain about. It's just coming to terms with our reality. And if you don't know where you're going, then any road will get you there. It is the grand illusion. And the best way to identify the truth is to identify the great lies of history. Are you tired of being lied to, ladies and gentlemen? Doesn't it just irk you? Well, you're not alone. It's an entire world that has been deceived. That's what the scriptures say. And hello, Sandra. Hello, Lynn. Good to have you. If a lie is repeated long enough, it becomes a truth. Yeah, it's a wonderful world, Mrs. Smith, but we're going to have to just come to terms with it right here on the Forbidden History series. It's okay. It's okay. They had their little party, but now reality sets in for everybody. That's the way it is in the end, right? On the realpublicradio.net, Free America Radio Network, and welcome to the Forbidden History series, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Desert Owl, a bird who sees in the night, and I see too much, and it just It's enough to make you sick, and it actually does. It makes you sick because you see all the suffering going on in the world, and you know that it doesn't need to be, that there's so much bounty in the world, that there's no need for starvation. There's no need to be bombing each other and killing each other. All these wars are manipulations of people in high places, and in particular, about that Khazar Jewish banking, right? Well, they're doing it for the Vatican. It's an Aryan thing. It's not one culture. It's a whole group of people come together against mankind, and it's amazing. So we're here trying to make, lemonade out of lemons, and speak truth, okay? And they'll hate you for that, right? They'll hate you for that. So it's okay because we're talking about, you got it, Sandra. How did you know we were going to talk about the ancient cult of five tonight with Alan David? And it's the existence of the cult of five within our modern world that we reveal right here every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So, and then after that, after we bring on the ancient cult of five, we'll be talking about the great lies of history and how Timothy McVeigh was a military operative, and but he didn't blow up the Murrow building in Oklahoma City. That was an inside job, and he was just the patsy, and allowed to walk at the end. Yeah, okay. That's if you haven't heard this one, then you need to hear it, because this is how their game is played, ladies and gentlemen. They let their puppets walk. Okay, they look like they got hung like Saddam Hussein, and looks like Timothy McVeigh was euthanized on a gurney, but the truth is he walked. Okay, so if you want to hear the rest of the story, you have to stay tuned. All right, and want to welcome any new listeners out there and our friends that come on every day. So let's get Alan David on here and get the road on the show. Or was that show on the road? Okay. And you did tell your friends about the broadcast, right? Okay, well, thank you for doing that. Here we go. Hey, Deplorable, good to have you.
Hello.
Good evening, Alan. How you doing?
Fine. How are you doing?
Doing okay. Are we good on the audio? We got a little background screeching going on.
Is there any screeching now?
Not at the moment. Just a second ago there was. So now it's happened. What? Okay, it's a squelch. I think it's a squelch. I don't know if it's like a feedback, but when I'm talking, it's happening when I'm talking. It comes right back to me. So is anything different? Or are we doing everything the same as far as you know?
As far as I know, it's the same.
Same room?
Same room? Thing, same place, yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll just have to work with it then and move forward. It's not that bad, but it's just a little evident. But you're doing most of the talking tonight, Alan, so let me pass it on to you, and I'll stand back and jump in if I have a good question, or if anybody out there is making a comment.
All right. Hope you guys are all doing good tonight. Tonight I'm going to talk about some things relating to what we've talked about the last few times. Philosophic brotherhood, secret societies, and the beliefs about numbers generally. And I'm going to make a lot of connections from the past leading up to the present. And I'm going to give some references, sources, books, places you can go to get the research and to verify what I'm saying. This goes way back, countless centuries, millennia, and you can track it down. It's quite a bit of research and work, but believe me, it's there. It's there waiting to be uncovered. So I have an outline here I'm going to go over. It's stated by some sources that Pythagoras, which was the ancient Greek philosopher who lived around 2,500 years ago in Greece, invented the word philosophy. Philosophy is said to be the union of two words, which is philo or philos and sophia. and those words mean love and wisdom, meaning that philosophers, when you're a philosopher, you're said to be a lover of wisdom. And that basically this came about because Pythagoras, according to the legends, he went around the world seeking wisdom, and he found it in the possession of men who they called sages. And he found that these sages were basically arrogant and elitists. And they basically believed that knowledge, should be kept basically hoarded by the elite, by those few men who are privileged to have it, and it should be made very difficult or almost impossible for your common individuals, the masses, whatever you want to call them, the sheeple, the goy, whatever, the great unwashed. There's various terms that the elite use, but basically kept out of the hands of the many by the few. And Pythagoras is said not to have liked this elitism in knowledge, and he did not want to call himself a sage. So he set about thinking of some other way to deal with this, and he came up with an idea of forming his own school, secret society, which he would call philosophers. And so that's basically, he invented that word, is what they say. And although what is called philosophy existed long before that, by the sages, ancient sages and ancient masters from going way back in all the ancient cultures, he decided to start his own version, his own line of the same thing. And so that was about 2,500 years ago. I don't know how many of you have heard of Manly Hall. Manly Hall is said by a number of scholars and occultists to have been the foremost authoritarian figure, the foremost authority in modern times on secret societies, the secret brotherhoods, and including Freemasonry and the like. And there's a number of people who claim this. Manly Hall died in 1990, according to the record. There's a good book out by a guy named Louis Sahagin, who was a writer for the LA Times years ago. He wrote a book about Manly Hall's life and death, and I recently read it in the last several years. And you want to get the updated version. It's called Master of the Mysteries, New Revelations on the Life of Manly Palmer Hall. And it was published this updated version was published in 2016. And it's quite revealing about the man Manly Hall. Well, Manly Hall was born in Canada to a elite family, basically a bloodline family that goes back to England. If you research the Hall family, they are a noble bloodline family, privileged family in Britain. Anyway, he was born in Ontario, Canada, which was a crown city, which is run by the Crown of Britain. So he came with his mother to America around when he was a teenager, and eventually ended up in California, where he, in 1934, set up his Philosophic Research Society in Los Angeles, and is still there. Well, he's famous. His most famous writing is Secret Teachings of All Ages, and that's still available. But he's written some other very revealing books, and one of them is The Secret Destiny of America. The other one is The Lost Keys of Masonry, which is really 3 books in one. And if you read some of those books, you'll find out what the occultists, the brotherhoods and secret societies believe about America, the destiny of America, and the whole world. Now, Manly Hall wrote in Secret Destiny of America, basically that there was a secret plan of the mystery schools of the brotherhoods, that America was basically supposedly the fulfillment of some dream of the classic philosophers, including, that's Plato included in Pythagoras. Later, I found this to be a lie, and I'm not going to go into all that right now. In another show, I'm not going into a lot of details about some things I've talked about. Right now, I want to go through this historical outline to give you sources where you can, go and verify these connections and basically establish the facts of concealed history. Now, The Secret Destiny of America is in that book. Hall refers to a thing called the Philosophic Empire, which he also alternates with the term the Platonic Empire. And what he says basically in that book is that all major events of world history are orchestrated behind the scenes by what he calls the Philosophic Empire, and alternatively calls the Platonic Empire, referring to the Greek philosopher Plato. And, Plato lived around 2,400 years ago, we're told. I found in my research that Plato was an admirer of Pythagoras, and he basically took a lot of Pythagoras' teachings in numerology and geometry and beliefs and expanded them in his own philosophy. Now, Pythagoras wasn't alive in the time of Plato. He lived 100 years before Plato, and about 2,500 years ago. Now, I found also that Manly Hall states in one of those two books, I can't remember which one, it might be the Lost Keys of Masonry. He states that Freemasonry is a secret society within a secret society. And immediately when I heard that, it got my mind going. I'm going, what is he talking about? Well, if you ever hear about Adam Weishaupt and the founding of the Bavarian Illuminati, you will sooner or later come across the conspiracy theory, which it appears to be fact. But, the evidence is very thin, but Hall is one of the ones who tells you point blank. If you do enough research into his writings and stuff, you'll find that when he talks about the lily and the rose, he says the lily and the rose are two branches of the same brotherhood. And I did research on that. Of course, the rose is the Rosicrucians, the Brotherhood of the Rosy Cross. And but as far as the lily went, I didn't know, and I did a bunch of research and found out it's the Bavarian Illuminati. So what he's saying is basically the Bavarian Illuminati took over Masonry. So there you have the meaning of a secret society within a secret society. Now, this concept, of course, taking something over from within, apparently was very well known by the founders of the United States of America. You can go back and find a statement that is credited to founder Thomas Jefferson. And what they say Jefferson said was, if this form of government is to ever be overthrown, it will not be overthrown by an invading foreign army, but from within. So I find that a very startling parallel and coincidence that Jefferson, whom some say supported the Bavarian Illuminati, some allege he was a member of Masonry. But researchers say there's really no proof that Jefferson was a member of the Masons, but there is one shred of evidence that links him. They say they found he signed into one of the Masons' meetings one time as a guest. And so he did know the Masons, he did know the Brotherhood of the Masons. He visited them at least once, that's known. And what I discovered was, in fact, Benjamin Franklin was the founder of the American Philosophical Society in in Philadelphia. They still exist today. You can find them online. They have a website. And there's another old organization that still exists. You might be interested in researching. They're connected to all this too. And it's called the Royal Society of Britain, which was founded in the early 1600s. It's said to be that they were founded in honor of Francis Bacon. And they have a website also, Royal Society. And they've been around for over 400 years. So those are two old organizations which are basically philosophers and occultists.
Well, Alan, if I could jump in, the one thing that gets me about Jefferson is his enormous wealth, you know, and that giant mansion with a dome on top. A dome is it rather? I'm sorry.
He designed that himself, you know.
No doubt, yeah. He was all around. That's the thing. He was so talented and you know, and endowed that to me, you know, smells of something. I don't know what, but overall, he seems like a good guy. But you know, again, that's what most of the bad guys look like, are good guys, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he was a very complex guy. You know, there's a lot of things people point to about his supposed dark side. He owned slaves. He impregnated one of his slaves. There's researchers who will point out to you that he appears to have supported Bavarian Illuminati and Weishaupt. They point to, some of the things they point to is his reaction to the bloody revolution in France, the French Revolution, and the atrocities that were going on in the street. And there's some really bad stuff that was going on. People were purportedly being raped, tortured, and butchered in the street. And these reports were brought back to America about all the atrocities. And I think that's where Jefferson is purported to have stated something like, well, the tree of liberty has to be watered from time to time with the blood of, you know, patriots, or something like that. And some people took that to be, you know, quite a cold, you know, hard statement, you know, instead of showing some kind of compassion for the victims. You know, it seems to be a very detached and cold statement.
Right.
So he was an architect, and he did design that home, Monticello. And there's a room in there that's 10-sided room. So I've discovered a bunch of stuff. He was supposedly searching after the mysteries, including mysteries of Native Americans, what they believe, their occult beliefs, mysteries of the Far East, occult, all kinds of things. Kinds of things. But I'm going to go on here. In my research, I discovered that Plato is said to have been an admirer and follower of Pythagoras, although Pythagoras lived 100 years before him. Now, purportedly, Pythagoras' secret school had a sign outside that said, you know, those who don't know geometry may not enter, something to that effect. And so they say that the Greek philosopher who was purported to be the best student of Plato, which is Aristotle, has a famous quote about the Pythagoreans, and he's quoted as saying that to the Pythagoreans, all is number, and everything and everyone is a number. You know, there's kind of like a joke that goes around. And that's a very interesting, you know, idea that, you know, Pythagoras believed and taught such a thing in his secret school. You know, everything is connected to numbers. And what you find is this was developed further by Plato. And Plato, I discovered, was a big cult of five teacher. And one of his main teachings was that the universe, everything in the universe comes from five geometric shapes or solids. They call them the five geometric solids. And it is claimed that, you know, basically that's what Pythagoras believed, and Plato extended that teaching and, you know, went further. But I find that very interesting, an insight into the cult of five. geometry, 5 geometric solids are said to basically have produced the universe, or everything in the universe is a product of one of these 5 shapes or whatever, connected to it in some way. That's what they believe. Well, there's another fact I came across that the Greeks also divided their architecture into 5, and I have a suspicion it's related to the 5 geometric shapes or solids. Further, Plato, he wrote his famous work called The Republic, and a lot of people are aware of that, I'm sure, Plato's Republic. There's something I think is contained within the Republic and his writings. It's lesser known. It's not really well known, I don't think, but you can find it. It's called The 5 Regimes. It's referred to as the 5 Regimes, and basically it's related to the Republic, and what it is about is the 5 forms of government and the 5 types of men who rule them. And I'm sure these are related to the 5 geometric shapes. I don't think it's a mere coincidence.
Right. And Alan, just so you know, we have a question whenever you're ready to take it. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. This is from Sandra down in Australia, and she says, "Who is the head of the secret squirrel?" Now, I've never heard of that. Who is the head of the secret squirrel? Have you heard of that?
No, but I see a lot of squirrels running around out here where I am.
Okay. Well, they're all kind of squirrely people, aren't they? Go ahead.
Whatever their secret is, it has to be underground because they dig holes, and they rule the underground, no doubt. Especially where I live, they rule the underground. I mean, they must have a matrix for miles and miles in all directions.
Yeah.
Connecting their empire and connecting their empire, the secret underground network. So I think there is a connection there. I think she's trying to throw a hint at us.
All right. Well, are you near any of the underground UFO bases? Hey, Martha.
Well, I don't know. I've never seen or been there to any of them, but I know this. I'm in California, up in the hills somewhere, and I have uncovered research in the last few years, very remarkable, that there's purportedly a whole, tunnel system from practically north to south California.
Yeah.
Connected to secret underground bases all up and down.
Well, you've got a major underground UFO facility there somewhere, in Central California. I don't remember the name of the place, but yeah, you may have more than one.
Have you ever heard of China Lakes?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I don't know where it is offhand.
It's in Kern County above Bakersfield.
Okay.
That's one of the major secret underground bases where they develop secret technology, including secret weapons. And yeah, it is. I think it's connected to that same thing.
I think that may be it. Yeah, I think it may be. Ringing a bell.
Yeah. There's other places. I don't really want to go into all that right now.
Yeah.
But one of the things you'll find out is when you study deep into secret societies is that they're basically rooted into philosophy. And, when you find out Adam Weishaupt was the dean of canon law at Ingolstadt University, which of course is Catholic, the whole thing is Catholic. You find out Weishaupt was Jewish, but he was also brought up and taught by Jesuits. So his father was the same thing. He was the dean of canon law at Ingolstadt University, and he was a Jesuit and Jesuit Jew. They're Jewish, but they're Jesuits. It's a very interesting connection there. And then when his father died, his godfather took him in and brought him up and trained him, in the teachings of the Jesuits. And his godfather also was a dean of canon law at Ingolstadt University, which is said to have been controlled by the Jesuits the whole time until Adam Weishaupt himself became the dean. And it's said that he supposedly rebelled against his Catholic teachings, but I have evidence to show that that's a story we were told, that he was working for the Jesuits the whole time. I'm not going to go into the details of that today, but I'm laying a foundation for future shows when I'll start going into all these details. Now, it's said that Adam Weishaupt was not only was he the dean of law there, he was a philosopher himself, and he wrote his own philosophical works, and I have some of them. So, there isn't any doubt that there is a basis to what Manuel is saying, because when you find out these people who have these movements to basically, change the world, take over the world, and all this, they all are rooted in some kind of philosophy, some philosophical bent. So, now, when you get into the research about him and why he was doing what he was doing with this secret society, the Very Illuminati, what you find out is that he apparently believed in a lot of mystic things. One of the things was the law of fives. There's this teaching purportedly related to that came from Weishaupt and the Very Illuminati called the law of fives. And the law of fives states that all civilizations go through 5 stages. They're born in the first and they die in the 5th. And later on, I found this teaching or belief in other sources from other places. And I'm not going to go into those sources right now, but I'm just going to lay the foundation. And later, other shows, I'm going to go into all those details.
Okay.
Now, the same thing exists. I'll give you one offhand. Go look into the 5 worlds of the Maya. Do you remember 2012? They said the end of the world was coming. 2012 was the end of the 5th world of the Maya or something.
Well, that was what the media was purporting. It was the end of the world, but the Mayan calendar was just talking about an end of an age, right?
That's correct. That's correct. But you see the connection, though. They're saying the same thing. They're saying, the destruction of the world in the 5th world. The Mayan world ends in the 5th. You see, it's a cult belief.
Yeah.
And they latched onto it, but you'll see it. There's another guy who wrote. You know the guy who wrote Tragedy and Hope, Carroll Quigley?
Right, he was also the teacher for Bill Clinton, yeah.
Well, yes, he was one of Clinton's instructors over at Georgetown, but to check it out. He wrote a book, too. He's not famous for this book, but go look up the list of books he wrote, other than Tragedy and Hope. He wrote a book about the evolution of civilizations, and in there, he tells you the exact same thing, that they all die in the fifth stage or 5th age. So, I find that very intriguing. This couldn't be a coincidence, I don't think. It seems these people who are connected to the elite of, bankers and, these people who have power, it seems they all have some kind of common connection in their philosophy and their belief. He was connected to banking and bankers. That's what he claims in his book, and that they gave him access to his secret archives. Well, he writes a book about the evolution of civilizations, and he says the same thing that Weishaupt stated, basically, that they go through 5 stages and they die in the 5th. So, I just find over and over again in my research the same themes, same ideas from different sources, which means they're all connected ultimately.
Right, but Alan, what does that mean? They go through 5 stages and then they end. What is that? Do you know what that means?
I'm not going to say what it means, but I'm going to tell you this. What I have found is it's related to it's related to the 5 worlds of the Maya. And the 5 worlds of the Maya, people don't understand, probably, is based on astrophysics, astronomy, and it's there are 5 grand cycles of our solar system. And if you go look up in a book titled "Our Ancestors Came from Outer Space," It was written in like 69 or something, I forget, 68 I think, maybe early 70s, but the man who wrote it, he was works for NASA. He was from France. He worked on the communication system for the Apollo spacecraft, and in that book he reveals the constant of Nineveh, which is, they call it the constant of our galaxy, our solar system, and basically these 5 cycles, okay, are related to it. These 5 cycles, the 5 worlds of the Maya, and it's a long number. And it's purported that Aleister Crowley himself had been searching for that number for his whole adult life, and he never found it, is what they say. But I found it in that book, Our Ancestors Came from Outer Space. And what's very peculiar, when that book came out in, like, I guess it was early 70s or something, when I lived in Redondo Beach, I found it. It just had come out, and I got it and read it. And years later, you know, I lost my book collection, and I wanted that book, and so I, you know, this is like, I don't know, 10 or more years later, maybe 15 or something. So I went searching for that book, and it was off all the lists. And I gave the name of the author. I would go to the big bookstores and give his name and say, could you print out a list of his books? And they print out a list of the books, and that book would be missing. It's not even on the list. And I'm saying, it's not even on his list?
Uh-huh.
Who removed that book?
Right. And Alan, just want a note here. Martha up in Canada, she says that she read that book, Evolution of Civilization, was published in 1961. Imagine the implications now.
Yeah. you know what's going on. The thing of it is, so I knew somebody had removed that book because there was something in that book they did not want people to discover or realize. And after I pondered and did more research, I realized what it was. And what it was Aleister Crowley was looking for that number that's in that book. It's called the Constant of Nineveh. And when you find out what Crowley wanted to do with that number, what his intent was, which is going to be in my book where I write, there's a number of books I'm writing. I'm not going to tell you, but I'm just going to leave it at that. There's a lot more to all this stuff, and I can't go into everything. I've got a whole couple more pages of this outline I got to go over. But what I'm trying to do here is connect the fact that a lot of these people were all philosophers, although we're told they were in secret societies, this secret society or that, but you'll find out they all had a philosophy, and they believed this philosophical, in these philosophical ideas, which connects them all to the philosophic brotherhood that Manly Hall was talking about. James Billington, I further found out when I read his book, Fire in the Minds of Men, which was published in about 1980, before he was the Librarian of Congress. He states in that book that the final plan, the final blueprint of the Bavarian Illuminati of Adam Weishaupt was he titled it Pythagoras. Okay, then I further found, I knew this was getting obvious, that there was something connecting Masonry and Pythagoras and, this guy Weishaupt. So what I found out was that there is a circle of Masons called Pythagorean Masons, or Pythagorean Masonry. And, when I established that, then I realized, that there's something to all this. It is all connected. And another thing that I further connected to this ancient philosophic brotherhood is if you study a little bit more on Weishaupt, what you find is they say his plan was about basically overthrowing all the governments and all the religions, destroying them all, and taking mankind back to the most primitive or simplistic natural state, which would be the Garden of Eden, taking us back to paradise or the Garden of Eden, right? Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Well, yeah, that's what you find out. That's what Weishaupt, what his plan was. Okay, that's what's in his letters. The letters they discovered. Well, then years after that, what did I discover but that Sir Francis Bacon, who was a couple hundred years before Adam Weishaupt, he wrote a book called New Atlantis, the Home of the Rosicrucians. And Manly Palmer Hall refers to that. And the thing of it is, when you can go buy that book today, and when you buy it, they leave off the part that they just leave off the rest of the title. If you buy it today, it'll just say New Atlantis. It won't have the other part of the title that says Home of the Rosicrucians. For some reason, they don't put that on the cover of the book. Why are they excluding Home of the Rosicrucians?
Right. Well, that's interesting, Alan, because I've been contending all along that just like they work with symbolism and they tell a lot of child's tale, that the Jesuit Dutch Royal British Corporation flag called the red, white, and blue flag we use with the stars was actually flown on the high seas and is a slavery flag of the British Corporation owned by the Jesuits, and that therefore the story about Betsy Ross making the flag is just a child's tale because it's in the code of her name. Betsy means the first C of the rose. You see, Betsy Ross, rose, right? The first C of the rose. That fits.
Yeah, well, and there's more to it. They say that those colors and that design is partially, part of it is in the family crest of George Washington's family. So, and as we know, George had slaves too. Anyway, I digress. Now, I was going to say, where was I? I was talking about...
What are you thinking about it? I'll just say you are tuned in right here to the RealPublicRadio.net, Free America Radio Network, and every Thursday we have on Alan David with an introduction to the ancient cult of five and its existence in our modern world. Want to welcome any new listeners out there, and so feel free to join in and post a question if you have one. Alan, back to you.
Okay, Sir Francis Bacon. People don't. It's not commonly known that Sir Francis Bacon was a Knights Templar barrister lawyer from the Middle Temple, where the Knights Templar used to own that before the bad day of Friday the 13th hit them. And you can find that information in a book written by a guy by the name of Charles G. Addison, and he wrote that book in 1842. You can get it today from Adventures Unlimited Press, and the title of the book is The History of the Knights Templars by Charles G. Addison, and they give you the background of one of the key things about Francis Bacon was he was trained in the Middle Temple, which was the Knights Templars' temple, before they got kicked out on the infamous Friday the 13th. And he did call himself and sign himself as a Templar, Knight Templar, many times. And he was an expert in law. He wrote many legal treatises, and so this next piece of information becomes very interesting when you consider the fact that he knew about the alter ego doctrine. I wanted to know in my research, I suspected, I had a very strong impression that the Jesuits were involved in New Atlantis and the plan of Bacon. I found out about a book written by a Miss Potts called Francis Bacon and His Secret Societies. You can get that book today online somewhere. You can order it. And when I got that book and I went through it, I found that Miss Potts, it was written in, I think, the late 1800s or something, quite a while ago. Miss Potts states that Francis Bacon was writing letters that were undated and unsigned. He was writing letters back and forth from somebody named Toby Matthew. And I didn't know anything about that. What I had heard was Bacon somehow supported or thought highly of the Jesuits, but I didn't really have any clear information. Well, so I started doing serious searches to try to find evidence of my suspicion that there was involvement by the Jesuits in this plan of New Atlantis. And for a few years, I come up with nothing. Nothing would come up on the internet. And then one day, I did another search, and bingo, something popped up, and it was a brief, short quote, purported to be a quote of Francis Bacon, stating that that his alter ego was Toby Matthew. Toby Matthew was his alter ego. It didn't give a source or anything for this information, but so I started searching about Toby Matthew, and when I got the book by Miss Potts, when I came across it referenced by Manly Hall, and I found that she stated, in fact, he was writing letters back and forth with Toby Matthew, and Toby Matthew, it was stated at the time, the Jesuits were purported to have claimed he was not even a Catholic at the time when he met Francis Bacon, and they say he was never a Jesuit. Well, what I found out was I kept searching persistently for a couple more years, and I made a discovery, and what that discovery was, and somebody who purports to be an ancestor of Toby Matthew made some discoveries. I guess they came across the issue and they wanted to know the truth. And they found a book. Well, they wrote the book, but they made a discovery that, in fact, the fact that the Jesuits would deny during the times in question, they had denied having any knowledge of Toby Matthew, that they denied he was a member of the Catholic Church at the time he met Francis Bacon. They denied he was ever a Jesuit. Well, what happened was this ancestor made some discoveries and discovered that, in fact, Toby Matthew was not only a Catholic when he met Francis Bacon, he had to have been a Jesuit priest, and he was the head of a church. I can't give you all the details right now. I don't have them with me, but I'm going to tell you in a later show. He was, in fact, a Jesuit. And then I uncovered a quote from Francis Bacon. They said Bacon had stated that Toby Matthew was his, quote, friendly inquisitor, which anybody who's done their research on the Jesuits knows the Jesuits took over the Inquisition from the other Catholic, I forget who they are, the other Catholic organization. And so if he stated, in fact, Toby Matthew was his alter ego, and he said Toby Matthew was his friendly inquisitor, those two statements right there are enough to establish the fact, and the fact that they were writing letters back and forth.
Finish. Go ahead. I have a question, but go ahead. Finish first.
Those three facts are enough to make the connection that, in fact, he was sharing his plans in his writings, his projects with Toby Matthew in his letters. And Toby Matthew, most likely having, been or, stated his friendly inquisitor, I'm sure was giving him direction and guidance. So, to me, it's very clear. I found a book written by this guy. It's not published, but I found it somewhere in an archive, unpublished. And I'm going to reveal that in my book, too. This ancestor of Toby Matthew. And So once again, it turned out to be that my hunch, my impression, my suspicion was apparently well-founded. It's true that, yes, indeed, the Jesuits have a hand in the plans for New Atlantis. And in fact, they were there, involved with Bacon. And what you find out when... Go ahead.
Well, no, I was agreeing with you. In fact, it was the Jesuits with Adam Weishaupt that founded America first on May 1st, 1776, trumping the phony independence 4th of July, 1776, right?
Yeah, but there's more to it than that. The Jesuits. Okay, there's a lot of mythology going around about who was the first, Western secret society that landed on the American shore and all this. If you go on YouTube, you will find, I think Chris Putnam is one of them, and there's some others who did this documentary video. Mm-hmm. One of the people involved is a guy, he's pretty well known. He wrote the book on the Horns of the Beast, Bill Still. He's in that documentary. And then there's another guy, Bill Snevlin, who's in it. He's well known. He was a Satanist, occultist, a Luciferian, secret society member, and converted to Christianity. And he's written a book called Lucifer Dethroned, which I read. And I've met Bill Snevlin in person at a conference. Anyway, they all are in this documentary, and they're talking about, secret societies in America. And then they come to a point where they talk about who was the first secret society that came to America. And they say that it was the Rosicrucians, who landed over there in Philadelphia from Germany. And I knew that was wrong, and I went and proved it. I went into the Catholic dictionary and looked it up, and they give you the history of the Jesuits in America. The Jesuits were there in Maryland something like, 60 or 80 years before the Rosicrucians. Okay. Well before any of that. And and lo and behold, guess who it was how they began in America, in the North American continent. Their first location in Maryland. Guess what that was?
The first location that you're talking about, New Rome.
Well, yes, that's what they call that. That's later, but what I'm saying is, go back to go back to the seal of the Jesuits. The seal.
Yeah.
What I say about the seal and the first meetings before the founding. What did I reveal?
You're talking about in Philadelphia, when they were in Philadelphia?
No, I'm talking about like the first or second time I was on the show, and I talked about that the Jesuits were a cult of five, and they had these meetings. Ignatius had 2 meetings before he founded them and before he created their seal. Remember that information?
Well, Alan, I'm on overload. Please remind us.
Okay, I told you that he met 2 times with two different locations with a group of 5 men before he founded them and before he created the seal. And inside the seal is 2 5-pointed stars.
Yeah.
Okay, now, if you look it up in the Catholic dictionary, you're going to find that the Jesuits in North America started in Maryland, and they started with 5 priests in Maryland, 5 men. Okay. That's a documented fact. And so this just repeats over and over and over. There's no coincidence or accident to it.
Yeah. Well, no, finish your point, because I want to get to the two comments we have here. A question.
It's totally occult, but go ahead.
Yeah, and just a footnote to what you just said before I go to the board here. I find it interesting because there was that thing about the Blair Witch, and where that event took place was right at the very headwaters of the Potomac River in Maryland, which is also on the crossroad of the Appalachian Trail, where I have no doubt that people have been disappearing for a long, long time, going back into the 1800s, if not 1700s. But that's a very occultic area right there. In other words, before America was founded, they were over here doing their harvesting of everything from mineral wealth to bodies and blood drinking. It's quite a legacy that we have here in America. But anyway, so we've got a comment real quick from Lou the Cat, and she says, like the Georgia Guidestones is by the Rosicrucians. I believe, and that would have been R.C. Christian. R.C. Has been touted as meaning Rosicrucian, right, Alan?
Yeah, indeed.
Yep. Okay, and Martha has a question for you. Any truth to Bacon? Bacon's real name is Christian Rosencreuz, and then name used to create Rosicrucian Order, the secret society known as Order of the Rose. Anything about that?
Yes. It's stated, look up Dawkins' books. Peter Dawkins is claimed to be the foremost authority on Francis Bacon. He's written 14 books. He's in Britain. According to him, he's really the one who issued those writings of the Rosicrucians, Rosencreuz and the myths of the Rosicrucians. According to him, he maintains Bacon was the author. And then there's a book you can get, Yates, The Rosicrucian Enlightenment. There's some very revealing stuff in that book. And then get Dawkins' book, Herald of the New Age, Peter Dawkins, about Francis Bacon. And what I found, what I was going to connect up was they're an Illuminati. That plan to overthrow governments and religions and take us back to the Garden of Eden. That is what Peter Dawkins tells you Francis Bacon's plan for New Atlantis was 200 years previous. So once again, it's repeated. You have a connection between Bacon, New Atlantis, and the Bavarian Illuminati, Jesuits again. So what do we have here? We have something that keeps repeating through time. Now, you talked about New Rome, Washington, D.C. There's a book that was written by Tupper Saucy called Rulers of Evil. You can get that book, and he talks about what he discovered about Washington, D.C. and New Rome, the records. But then again, there's a much more in-depth book. One of the best books I've ever gotten as far as research that I value is by David Ovison, and it's called The Secret Architecture of the Nation's Capital, the Masons and the Building of Washington, D.C. And he goes thoroughly through New Rome and the fact that the guy who owned it, his name was Pope, and all this stuff. He goes, it's pretty amazing and intriguing, all of these coincidences.
Yeah. That's that would have obviously been a secret name or what do you call a code word for the guy.
Oh yeah.
Well, Alan, you've done your reading. I got to say, you've really hit the books in an area I have not had a lot of time for. I've covered a lot of ground in different areas, but you've dived in specifically into this occult mystery. Please continue.
According to further on Bacon and New Atlantis, okay, if you ever get the book and read the book New Atlantis by Francis Bacon, and if you ever read The Secret Destiny of America by Manly Palmer Hall, Hall tells you that, okay, the book New Atlantis, there was 2 parts, and the only thing available is part 1. The book that you'll get is part 1. Manly Hall tells you in that book, Secret Destiny of America, that in fact there were 2 parts, and he says that the second part was secret, and it was revealed to all the secret societies of Europe. And why it was not revealed to the public at the time part 1 was, he tells you part 1 was released after Bacon died by his caretaker. His name was, I forget, Raleigh. His last name was Raleigh, and I think he was related to Walter Raleigh, but his last name was Raleigh. He was the caretaker, and he released the book part 1 of Bacon after Bacon died. And what Palmer Hall tells you, Manly tells you, is that, there's a rumor that, part 2, actually, what they tell you is it was never completed by Bacon, but he says there's a rumor, hint, that he did complete part 1 and 2. Part 2 was given to all the secret societies of Europe, and he says it does exist. And what he says is, or what Raleigh says is that part 2 consisted of the way of governance of the world government, New Atlantis. It's the way, the secret of how New Atlantis would be run, the laws, the legal system or whatnot, how it would be run, and that they kept that a secret, okay? And only the secret societies know it. Well, I can tell you what it is, just by, following history and following the members of this philosophic brotherhood. Crowley was one of them. I came across something on the internet. There was a very good researcher who discovered something. What he discovered was a double AA symbol by this inner secret society philosopher group. He said a lot of them were doctors, and that they were into ciphers. Okay, well, come to think of it, Dawson, Peter, what is his name? Dawkins, that's his name. He tells you about the AA, the secret AA of Francis Bacon, and the connection to Shakespeare, that Francis Bacon wrote the Shakespeare stuff. He says there's an AA connecting, and it stands for Athena, and I forget the other thing. But when you get into research, Aleister Crowley's book, The Book of the Law, you keep researching, you'll find that somebody tells you that was really a secret cipher, right? Well, then there's a connection there with the AA. Once again, Aleister Crowley started a secret society that was called the AA, the Argentinium something or other. And so there's a connection I discovered again with the AA, the ciphers, the people who are into the ciphers. Crowley, the Book of the Law, is purported to be a cipher. And, he claims, the story of the Book of the Law by Crowley, he claims that on his wedding night or something, he was in the Great Pyramid of Egypt with his scarlet woman, and they were visited by this spiritual being called Aiwass, and that Aiwass dictated the Book of the Law to him. Well, and he calls it the Temple of Thelema, the Book of the Law of Thelema, and all this. Well, I did some research, and I'm absolutely certain that Crowley lifted it from a previous writing. It's called Gargantua, and it's written by another philosopher a couple hundred years before, in the 1500s, which I have that book. He talks about the Temple of Thelema, and the writing on the wall above the doorway of the temple was, "Do what thou will." Well, that's exactly what Crowley lifted. He came up with the Temple of Thelema, and "Do what thou will shall be the whole of the law," which he states in the Book of the Law. He claims it was sent to him by Aiwass. Well, when I looked up that word, Aiwass, the way he had spelt it, it was one letter off of a Jewish word, and that word is revealed by Nesta Webster in one of her books, one of her more famous books from the 1800s, and she identifies that as a Jewish word that means basically the wise one of the age, or the wise leader of the age.
Well,
so what the real meaning of Crowley's statement is that he is the wise one of the age, and he's the one who he declared the Ion of Horus through the Temple of Thelema in the Book of the Law. That's what he declared. And I'm going to reveal a lot of things that I've discovered about the real meaning of all this.
Yeah.
When I complete my book,
yeah.
I'm not going to go into all that right now.
Alan, give me the meaning of Iowa again, please.
Of what?
Iowa?
No, Aiwass.
Uh-huh.
Aiwass. Supposedly, it's like the wise one of the age, the leader of the age.
Yeah, because when you started saying that word, it seemed to me that in the movie Avatar, that one of those characters of the Avatar, like the woman that was like the matriarch, it seems to me that it was Awa. She was known as Awa.
Yeah, Aiwass. You can say Aiwass or Aiwass. It's pronounced both ways, but yeah, that's a shortened version. It's a Jewish word.
Okay. The wise one of the ages?
The wise one of the age, or the leader of the age, and it's Crowley. If you remember, he's the one who declared the new age of Horus. So he's declared himself the wise one of the age by declaring the new Ion of Horus. But he's not saying that. He's pawning it off on IWAS, giving you this BS story because he knows most people won't know what it means. But if you go research it, you'll discover what I'm telling you is what it really means.
Right, and it's rather interesting. It also there's a prime root of the word ayahuasca.
Yeah. The vision vine.
Yeah, yeah. And the woman is associated. The woman is associated with that. You know, the Elohim, or the the spiritual mother, or the Mother Earth, the Gaia. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Where are we? Let's see here. Okay, so further, I discovered more about this New Atlantis plan by Bacon, and there's a book that I suggest anybody who wants to find out more about it. It's a book written by a school teacher in Britain. Him and his wife ran a private school. His name's Nicholas Hager, Hagger, Nicholas, Nicholas. And he wrote this book. He's written a number of books. I've read 3 of them. And this book, The Secret Founding of America, The Real Story of Freemasons, Puritans, and the Battle for the New World. Well, he was on some documentaries about what he's claiming here in this book. And what he claims, and he's done a lot of excavation research. He's paid for it. Him and he's had this organization to raise money to pay for an excavation of Jamestown. And what he's claimed is that actually, in all actuality, the first settlement from Europe, England, Britain, Jamestown, they have somebody who they claim was the leader of Jamestown, right? Well, he says, in fact, that's a story we were told. The real leader and founder of Jamestown was the nephew of Francis Bacon, and his name was Bartholomew Nosgold or something like that. And he even went so far as to get funding and go to the location of Jamestown and do excavations. And they think they found in the center of where was Jamestown, the very center, they think they found his grave, Nosgold's grave. And there's a documentary, I think it was online some years ago. I don't know if it's still there, but you can go look into all this. And he basically tells you that Francis Bacon sent his nephew with the plans for New Atlantis to begin a settlement colony on the North American continent, Jamestown, and that was the beginning of the plan for New Atlantis. And basically, it's been covered up. They tell you that it was somebody else.
Yeah.
Was the founder of Jamestown and all this. So it's very interesting. And this guy knows something about the Cult of Five. I know, because what he thinks on the front of his book, this book, The Secret Founding of America, there is a seal on the front right cover. It's got basically a golden circle, and inside the golden circle, guess what's in the golden circle?
A sun? I'm not sure. I don't know. A star, right?
It's 5 men.
Oh, 5 men.
What would you think? It's a cult of 5, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the Committee of 5 who founded the United States of America. The Committee of 5 who signed the Declaration of Independence.
Okay. So was that John Hancock then one of the key players in that?
Who?
John Hancock?
Well, he wasn't in the Committee of 5, I don't believe, but he was the big signer. John Hancock was a royalist. He dressed in purple all the time. He had a big purple coat. Anyway, we know the story about his big, signing it really big, his name.
Well, that would have implied he was the president at that time, right?
Yes, he was the president of the previous, but he wasn't the president, this one they invented. But he was a royalist, and he loved the color purple. And if you research the color purple, that's what you find out. It's the color of royalty.
No,
so he was,
yeah.
So the thing of it is, you have this seal, and it shows 5 men. It's the Committee of 5. Below the seal, you have the title of this book, right? It says, The Secret Founding of America. It's 5 words. So he's drawing a parallel with the founding of America with the cult of 5 men with 5 words. And, you know, this guy knows. All I have to say is, this guy who's a private school teacher in Britain with his wife, he knows about the cult of 5. Right. And so I found, you know, that connection in there. You get that book and he tells you some pretty interesting things. So the next thing, you know, did the Jesuits have, you know, any hand or part in the plan for the world government in Atlantis on the North American continent? Well, we already went over that. They did, but it seems that the Jesuits don't want to take credit for that kind of thing. They're always in the background, it seems. Yeah. And I think they've learned, because in order to carry out these plans, you have to do a lot of evil stuff. And so, like, you know, I don't know if you ever heard of the gunpowder plot. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, that's the movie V for Vendetta was all about.
Exactly, that's where that comes from. That's right, V, 5, Roman numeral 5, V. It was 5 men, and it turns out they were Jesuits, 5 Jesuits who were trying to blow up Parliament. You know, they had the gunpowder kegs underneath, and they came very close to doing it. And they got busted, but you can look that up. It was 5 Jesuits. And there is something that I came across in my research on the gunpowder plot was, I don't know if it's still up there, but you can look it up. YouTube, this was a few years back, probably 2014. And there was a documentary. Some guy did a study. He was doing research, and he had to have funding. I think he was a construction contractor. He built buildings and stuff. He was an engineer, I think. And he was very intrigued by the story of the gunpowder plot. He wanted to know if, you know, they had succeeded in setting off that charge, would it have successfully destroyed the British Parliament? So guess what this guy did?
Well,
he remodeled. He spent his money. I mean, he must have had some money. He got a remote location, land out in the middle of nowhere, and he spent his money, or money somebody else donated, to reconstruct a model, an exact model of the British Parliament building they were trying to blow up. And then he reenacted the whole thing with all of the gunpowder kegs underneath and everything, and they set it off. And he wanted to know if it would have taken it down. And the final conclusion, and I saw the documentary, final conclusion was yes. If they would have set it off, it would have taken down Parliament. So there's some really weird stuff that goes on out here. I don't know who would want to spend their money to figure that one out. You know, just to blow up, to spend the money to build, reenact a model of Parliament, just to destroy it, just so you could say, yeah, it would work. Unless maybe it was the Jesuits.
Well, yeah, there's no way of knowing what was in their minds, I guess, Alan, really. You know, it's so many weird things that go on, right?
Yeah.
What about, you know, with the thing with the 5, we see all these pictures where, you know, when they're taking photographs from 2 men standing side by side with Lincoln, to even Paul McCartney and many of the other actors and musicians, they put their hand inside their coat. Napoleon did it, and they're hiding the light. To me, that means they're hiding the light, but it's interesting the hand has 5 fingers. So is there anything more to that you know about?
Well, they're hiding the 5s. There's two hands. Here's what it is, basically. There's a saying, and you find this, I found it also in the Jewish religion. Okay, you know the 10, the Septuagint or something, and it's in the Greek, and it's also in the Jewish religion. I'm gonna have to, you know, look it up. I can't give you everything right now, but it's basically the 10. And when you go look it up, it has to do with the Kabbalah. And you look it up, you'll find this saying. And I found it in the Jewish research. And what they say is the 10 that are 5, or the 5 that are 10 and the 10 that are 5, they're one and the same. The 5 that are 10, the 10 that are 5. Now, if you take your two hands, you have 5 on each hand, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so and together they're 10. They're two 5s. So you have the 5 that are 10. And when you put those two hands together in, say, like, when you pray, you put them together.
Yeah.
You have the 10 that are 5. So, and that's in the Jewish religion. But when they hide one of the hands in the pocket, it is, there's half of it showing and half of it isn't showing,
Right, gotcha.
Okay. It's that simple. It's the cult of Brotherhood of 5.
Right. Makes sense.
And they're everywhere, but let's see. I want to go to some other information. When you find out that Bacon was a Knights Templar lawyer, barrister in the Middle Temple, that might get you curious about secret societies and the Templars, as it did me. So what I found out was that they not only they used the number 5 for a lot of things. Basically, they used 5 men to control organizations and the whole world. But I found out more evidence of this. It's set forth in a book, Secret Societies of the Middle Ages, and it's in a statement also by Tim Wasserman in his book, The Templars and the Assassins. Tim Wasserman tells you that the Knights Templar were managed by 5 men at the top. 5 men at the top ran everything. That's what he tells you. And once again, it confirmed for me that these guys are all the same. And it's all run by 5 men. The people behind the scenes appoint 5 men at all times, and those 5 men are doing what they're told.
Well, there you go. See, because that's what I was just going to jump in on. Those 5, it's easier to manage a small group of people than a large group, and so those 5 men are the key players for what I call the unseen hand.
That's right, exactly. And when you look at the United Nations, that is New Atlantis. That's the government of New Atlantis. The government of New Atlantis was a plan for a world government on the North American continent, which we know the United Nations was established on the North American continent in Manhattan, New York. It was built. The organization was created in 1942, but the UN Charter itself wasn't signed until the end of World War II in 1945. But that's when the Charter, and most people think that's when the UN was created, but it wasn't. It was created in 42. If you go look on the UN website, you'll see that in fact the Association of the United Nations, it was originally an association of 5 countries, and it was the original nuclear powers. And that's who runs it. The original 5 nuclear powers is there's 5 men representing those 5 nations who control all of the decisions of the UN for the rest of the members of the world. They make their decisions, and then it goes to the 5-man control mechanism, and they have veto power over anything. And the 5 nuclear powers have the veto power, so they have total control over all the decisions of the world government. And, to me, that's just astonishing. I found this same 5-man control mechanism. Even to outer space, there's a agreement that I found through the United Nations to control outer space. And when you read this document, what it tells you, it lists the activities that are going to be allowed in outer space. And those activities are in 5 categories. There are 5 activities. And it's just crazy. And there's another couple structures of 5 in that agreement. And one of them is the 5 nuclear powers are the ones that executed it. So this cult of 5 it goes all the way to outer space. I found it even in, if you ever look up the Intergalactic Confederation. Go do some research about that. George King and his footnotes in the Nine Freedoms, a book published in 61 or 2. And also, I think, Autobiography of a Yogi, where they introduced, it was published in 1954, they introduced the supposed guy named Babaji, they call him the Immortal Avatar. Well, the Galactic Confederation is mentioned, I think, in there or something. I don't know if it's in that book, but it's in George King's. But there's people who say that this Immortal Avatar of India, Babaji, is the one who brought in the Star Nations or the Galactic Confederation. And there's other people talking about it. And so I looked them up, and there's a list somewhere of their members. One of the members that has been a member is called the Orion Council of Light, Council of Five. It's the Orion Council of Five, and they come from Orion, I guess. They're claiming, and Orion's belt is the warrior, the star system, and basically it says that they have been a member. The Council of Five have been a member of this Galactic Star Confederation for 5,000 years. So, five is like predominant throughout all of this stuff, and even in outer space. Like I said, the five. There's according to George King, there is. He says that he was basically in his home in Britain in the 50s when he was contacted by somebody, a voice, who told him that he had been chosen as to lead the representative of the interplanetary parliament for our solar system, right? And he was kind of baffled, and he was wondering what the hell was the interplanetary parliament. So what you find out is when you go research all this stuff, what I found out is he founded something called the Aetherius Society, and he died in like the 1990 or something. He moved to California, and I further found out that he wrote a book called The Five Temples. And if you know anything about the Far East, you know that in India there's a thing called the Five Temples religion, and it's Shiva, God Shiva. And the five temples stand for these five events and these five incarnations of God. And what they are is they represent Creator, Concealer, Revealer, Preserver, and Destroyer. The last one is the Destroyer. And of course, that once again, the fifth temple, which is the fifth age, it relates to the five worlds of the Maya, the five cycles of our solar system, these five ages. And once again, in India, in the Shiva religion, the fifth is when the Destroyer comes. Now, something even more interesting, this Jesuit Pope, he's the first Jesuit to be Pope. Well, one or two popes before him, I can't remember which one, is quoted as saying that the last Pope will be a destroyer. I think it's actually one, it's not recent. It goes back, I don't know, hundreds of years, I think.
Yeah.
I think I know who it is now. But one of the popes had stated, I think it was Francis maybe of Assisi, I don't know. Francis of Assisi, I think, stated it. He stated that the last pope is a destroyer. And you know this Malachi's prophecy, they say that this pope is the last one, or one more after this, I forget. So, and this is the first Jesuit. So, if that's the case, then it looks like we're coming to this place where someone's planning to do some destruction here. And that can't be a coincidence when you find out that you have all of these different things. And it's very interesting. They all end in five. And like in Christianity, you have the fifth kingdom is the one that lasts forever when Christ comes back as a thief in the night. Well, I discovered something about this statement about the thief in the night, and I'm not going to talk about that right now, right here, but later another time I will. I'll put it all together for you. I've been working on some law stuff, and that's why I haven't got all the footnotes and everything, so I'm just going over an outline of some stuff, and which I will come in later when I'm done with this law project I'm working on. I have a deadline, so that's why I haven't really gone into a lot of detail yet, but that's going to be over fairly soon, because the deadline is coming up, and I just finished one document, and I have a couple more. They're almost finished, and when those are out of the way, then I'm going to be spending a lot more time preparing these talks, and then I'm going to have a lot of stuff lined up that you're going to get the real detailed information and sources. So so that's about it. Yeah, that's about it for tonight.
Mm-hmm. And you in this presentation also took it back to India, which is where I've been taking it all along as well, Alan, because that's I think where the unseen hand started, running the world, the pyramid civilizations, and the the ancient Aryan Brahmin priesthood. This is part of the legacy that is not being talked about very much, but I've been pursuing it for a couple decades now.
Yeah, I have some information I'm going to reveal about that too, that I discovered.
Okay.
One of the things Pythagoras is credited as saying that there are 5 weather bands that cover the planet, and I found out that it goes back to Sanskrit in India 6,000 years ago that it's stated in there, which supports the fact that Pythagoras went to India. Some people say he did, some say he didn't. But there's some people who are pretty authoritative who say, yes, he went to India and he learned a lot of the stuff from India.
Right. Well, even Cleopatra, when she was, having to be concerned about her life when her, government was going down by the Roman Empire, where did she send her son for safety? Sent him to India, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and in the lost books of the Bible and the forgotten books of Eden and the book of Adam and Eve, I'm just flipping through the page to see if I could find it perchance real quick. But basically, the serpent, it had something to do with the serpent, and it said the serpent goes back into India. So there's a lot. Yeah, it's all over the place.
Yeah, one of the things I found out was in India and also in the Americas. There's these serpent races. It's called. They're supposedly the wise ones. They're called the Naga or the Nagas.
The Naga. Yeah.
Yeah, Naga. Or there's singular and plural. Naga and Naga.
Well, Naga is a half the word. It's Nagash, and it means that which came down. The nail is the nail. The bite of the serpent. The Nagash is when you're gashed, like with the knife, right? So the Nagash, it hurts. It bites. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Hebrew has a version of that too. It's a word that's very similar to what you just said in Hebrew, and there's different sources give different meanings or definitions of the word.
Yeah,
and which I find to be very interesting.
Well, when you we're in the book of Genesis, and it talked about that they were tempted by the serpent. When you look it up in the Strong's Concordance in the Yiddish Hebrew, we find out it's Naga. It's not serpent. It's Naga, which is the same thing. It's just the more correct terminology, actually. Because
here's the thing. Here's the thing about it. What gives it all away? And I'm going to put this in my book too. If you read closely in the Bible, when it talks about this encounter with the supposed serpent, what does it say? It says that the serpent was the most wily, subtle creature, right? And that it supposedly tempted Eve and all that, did all those things to get her to bite into the apple. And then the Lord came and punished the serpent by making it crawl on its belly and eat the dust of the earth, right, for the rest of its days. Well, what that means is it wasn't on its belly to begin with. It was standing up. It was a naga. It was and if you read the book that was revealed in 94 and an updated one was in 96, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. In that book, what do they tell you? They tell you these serpent races that live down the Hollow Earth. They look like humans, but behind their head is a serpent head, and that's who I think that this being was. It was a Naga. It was a serpent race being from the Hollow Earth, and what the book of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth tells you is that the dweller, who I take as Lucifer, the dragon, who dwells in the center of the black earth, and he's a prisoner there, directs both the lords of flame and the serpent races. So, and I consider that to be a dialectical control mechanism, which is now what runs the world. It's a dialectical manipulation of counterfeit good and evil. Evil and a counterfeit good, which is duality. But I'll go into that later. It's 7:30 right now from what I get.
Right. Okay, so we can wrap it up. You want to give out any contact information, Alan?
Alan@nahls.net, my email. You can send me any questions, or if you want any research, just let me know. I give out free research. It's no problem. Or sources or anything.
I'm writing that down so for future. So it's ALAN@NAHLS. .net. Alan, ALAN@NAHLS.net, ladies and gentlemen. And so you don't have a website right now, Alan, right?
Well, I do, but they're not completed. I don't have time.
Yeah.
But when I get done with these last projects of law, one of them I'm almost done with, then I'm going to be doing that, completing them.
Okay.
For my book.
Okay. Well, then, great to have you on, and I want to thank you for all your efforts and research, and then we'll look for you next Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time right here on the RealPublicRadio.net, okay?
Well, thank you.
All right,
Talk to you
Alan.
later.
Be well. Tell Melody hello for me.
I sure will.
All right. Bye-bye. And
Bye-bye.
Alan's good friend Melody is on every Monday night, 9 p.m. with an hour of the law. The Mel's Bar and Grill, where she cooks up attorneys, and I tell her to throw them out the back door when she's done making them well done for me. Okay, so I'll just we're winding down. I'll just do a few words that kill. Okay, so I know everybody probably always wants to hear those words that they killed us with. So let's do that, and then we'll wind it down. I had all my prep tonight, and but I didn't want to stop Alan. I enjoy listening to him as well, and we're always learning. I'm gonna have to talk to him on the side about the Naga though, because I know that we all can't cover all bases, but he certainly does a good job with what he's doing, and I certainly respect his efforts. It's not a normal thing to become a bookworm and just read this stuff like this. It takes a very I just dropped some of my books here. Hang on. Free. Oh, jeez. I'm dropping more books. Oh boy. All right, hang on. It takes somebody with a real heart for dedication to pull this stuff together. And I'm hang on a minute. I'm sorry about that. Let me just put a song on for a second while I straighten this out. I'll be back in 1 minute. Okay, 1 minute. Oh, right. Okay. I got it taken care of. Everything's okay. Yeah, our world's not in trouble, ladies and gentlemen. Or is it? Yeah, I think our world is in trouble after we got a double witness now here on a lot of the stuff you've been trying to figure out. I noticed a lot of wows out there and confirmations for the deep voodoo that we are in. The Introduction to the Ancient Cult of Five and Its Existence in Our Modern World by Alan David. He's got several books he's working on right now. I've got like 24 books I'm working on, and I just got good news. I'm going to get some help possibly tomorrow or in just a few days to get all my data off my old computer onto my new one. Yahoo! Been waiting for that for most of the year here. So I've just been hanging in there and asking Heavenly Father to create miracles, and we're getting a few miracles here this week, and really excited. I'm about to get a device that is going to allow me to draw with my hand on the desk, and while I'm drawing the letters and the symbols in this piece of equipment, then you'll be able to see it right on the screen. It's called a notepad touchscreen, and so I'm about to get one. So I'm getting really excited because we're going to take the broadcast to the next level, and you'll be able to see it and then read it for yourself. Okay, so there you go. And all right, let's get back to the broadcast here, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to have all of you here every day and just joining in fellowship with each other and with me. And we'd love to make it a better world, but we know that these people have done a number on planet Earth, and there's no going back after all that they've done. I feel so sorry for the animals in the ocean. You know, the beautiful dolphins and whales and all the seals and you know, those beautiful creatures. Not to mention all the other creatures that are suffering, you know, from what man has done. When they wanted to beat us up over the tsetse fly and the green frog in the backyard, whenever we wanted to do some work, then you know, they come and beat us up, while all the time they were ready to destroy our entire world. And so they just enjoyed beating us up more than you know, what we do to tsetse flies and the green frog and the black in the back of the you know. Oh yeah, man, it's just it's unreal, huh? So I'm just pulling my cards out for tomorrow, so I'm just picking them off my desk here. And all right, words that kill. You know, I just love them pirates, the pirate sea of words. You know, hey matey, yes, we've done a number on you. You thought we were red, white, and blue, and we were black and white, and gonna drink your blood now, matey. So, yeah, you can tell it's late, can't you? Okay. With you to the end, desert. Thank you, Ninja. And the plastic continent in the ocean. The plastic. Yeah, well, that is really hurting those animals out there. Absolutely. The ocean of plastic. You got it. You know, it's just. Oh, yeah, I just can't. It's over soon. I'm 62 years old, and I wouldn't be living long if they let me live to my natural old age. I don't think, with all the poisons they're feeding us. But anyway, we're gonna go sooner than later. I'm sure here. It's if we make it to the end of this world, the end of this year, it'll be a miracle, right? Okay. So King, Chain, Chang, Chong, Chong, King, Ching. Cain, the brother of Abel, who was spotted and stained in blood with the bright red hair. See, killing technology, Buddha. Okay, kites, Khazars, today's Jews. Yiddish, also known as Germans. Yep. We got a misimpression of the meaning of German, just like China is Cana. You know, the words, once you know the code, they mean something a little different than what we thought, because all words have meanings. C, the 13th tribe by Arthur Kessler. Germans, the German eye. Saint Germain, a metaphor. Klingons, boy. Oh, Klingons, yes. The Klingons, ladies and gentlemen. You don't want to be a Klingon anymore, do you? Come on, you're going to cling on to this dead planet? You're going to cling on to being an American or a loyalist or anything like that? That's the Klingon, you see? Yeah, the loyal Americans who want to save it. See Star Trek, the Federation is against the Klingons. That's the metaphor, right? Knighted by the Queen. Oh, yes, officially becoming a Canaanite. The Cainite. That's the silent K in front of knight. Just a family tradition of blood and war. Knowledge, what we need more of, since everything we have ever been told, it seems, has been based upon a big fat lie. See, ignorance, it's to ignore the ants. Ignore those little ants over there. Yes. And ignorance is to ignore. So, College of Abbreviators. Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. We got to the heart of the onion here. The college outside the Vatican, run by the Jesuit Curii. They put the cure in your eye. It is where they have engineered and abbreviated our entire English diction, not to mention the other foreign tongues, as well as with a system of codes, while creating a one-world form of communication. See world language in Wilde's 1933 dictionary. And then we'll just go into the letter L here. C1, number 1, EL. That's L for of illumination, but it was originally AL. You see, the E is the corruption again, and that's what I'm going to be talking to you about first thing in the morning tomorrow, because I had in this morning's program a major revelation on the word Esau, and now the connections have really come to the table. And Shelley, good to have you. You've been listening in all night, have you? But if not, you'll have to hear the replay. We had a great friend on here every Thursday. So the Phoenician Canaanite goddess, as the El, too, took a vow to her called the vowel, the V veil, the V owls, and the owls, the V owl, vowels. Okay, they allow you to see in the darkness. That's what the vowels are. That's what I'll be talking about tomorrow. In fact, with the name of Esau, revelation this morning occurred in presenting this for you. So really excited, because this is a big one. Okay, and I'll be doing that in the morning. 3. The vowels are A, E, I, O, U, and O in U is actually the 2 O's. It's a cover for the 2 O's together. And in Wycliffe's 1382 translation of the Scriptures, the First English Bible, it says that in regard to Yahweh, it says, not I am Alpha and Omega, but I am the Alpha and the O, 2 O's in Wycliffe 1382 in the book of Revelations. Okay. So, and then the other vowel is Y. They said in school it sometimes takes the place of the I. Well, I think it should permanently take the place of the I. In fact, just throw that I away, because it's a blind. It's a cover they poked you in the eye with. These are all known as the seeds of light, the vowels, because when you change them in a word, you get the other hidden meanings. 4. Symbolically, 2 L's are 2 legs walking. Specifically the capital L's, you can see it, and therefore represent the Elohim, or the enlightened ones, or Illuminati. 5. The obelisk is the monument that represents the Elohim, or Elohim, more correctly, Elohim. There's the word love in the Elohim. There's olive, olive, the oil, the truth, the anointing. So that represents the Elohim, who are the builders of civilizations and the fabricators of history. So there's a double play on that word Elohim, because there's those who claim to be enlightened, but they're the phony illuminated. Sure, they got knowledge, but they don't have the love, so they can't be truly enlightened or illuminated, because with the light comes love. But yet they are the builders of the civilizations and the fabricators of history. 6. L is a symbol for the light. Right? There it is right there, light, first letter. Too bad, and also the first letter of love. Too bad they are not in it. 7, a prime symbol for time. That's right, the obelisk is also a symbol of time. So that little obelisk is the big hand on your watch going round, right? And see, we got Desert. I meant to tell you last stream, I found an old Bible hidden in Mom's bookcase, Old Testament, year 1611, and New Testament, 1881. Wow. Okay. Well, outstanding. It sounds like it's probably KJV then. Okay. So the last word. Okay. The last word will be last word. Okay. Last word. You must always have the last word when speaking with a judge or administrator in a courtroom, because if you remain silent, that's called tacit agreement. You just agreed with the judge because you didn't respond. And that's death. Okay, so you need to respond. Always have the last word. Whatever is stated last, and whoever speaks last, those words stand if they're not rebutted by a judge or if they're not rebutted by you. You've got to say something. Okay. See, when you speak in the above settings, it is always best to say, "Let the record show. Let the record show. Let the record show," and then start talking, babe. And then make your statement, okay? And we'll do one more. Law. Law is the flaw, okay? 2, wet. Law means wet in German. Looks like admiralty to me. See anagram, wall, Malta, at law, Maltese cross, and on and on and on and on, ladies and gentlemen. And so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We have gone down the trail. I wanted to do Timothy McVeigh tonight, but I'll just save that for tomorrow as well, okay, with the Great Lies of History, showing how he was a military operative that was used in the scheme by the unseen hand, the secret government, to take down the Merrill building, a government building in Oklahoma City. They killed their own, ladies and gentlemen. Isn't it just a wonderful group of people that they are? Of course, no, the judges weren't in the building that day, nor the BATF. They just took the day off while they let all those other workers in government and their babies in the nursery go ahead and get blown up. Just a wonderful group of people. You wouldn't want to be in a dark alley with them or having dinner somewhere because you may be on the menu. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll call it an evening. And I just want to thank you all for tuning in, for all of your comments and your support tonight and every night, every morning. And just hope that your families are safe. You know, what I also try to do is give protocols and tell you the things you may want to consider for being safe. Our journey is going to be short on this planet, but yet we've got an eternity in front of us. And what are you going to do with that, ladies and gentlemen? I hope you will hit those books and you will unravel the great mystery, become adept in the Shavors, the great royal center, which is the words, the logo. It's all right there. And we're going to make sense out of it every day. So come on back, tell your friends. And thank you, Lou. Thank you so much. And so don't forget, you know, if you're wanting to know the truth and you want to know the future, how short it really is, then don't forget you need to know about the Forbidden History series. I'm Desert Owl, thanking you for tuning in. And watch those gobaloons out there, okay? They're gonna bite you. They that's what they do. That's their job. They got their job. I got my job, and I'm glad I got my job, okay? Because I sure wouldn't want their job. Peace and love, everybody. Thank you, Mew Mew. Thank you all.